He goes, "Bruce, get that smile off your face. This is a serious situation. You're facing 5 years." And I go, "Yeah, but Becky read my tarot cards and there's no confinement in my chart."
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Becoming the King of Pot. My name is Todd Dankin, and with me, as always, is my infamous criminal cousin, Bruce Perlowin, the King of Pot. Bruce, coming to us from parts unknown, hidden away in a studio somewhere. Welcome back. What's happening?
Thank you, Todd. And parts unknown is I'm in my son Reese's podcast studio in Orlando, Florida, where I'm
Nice.
actually here for my stepdaughter's world dance competition, where as of yesterday, they're in first place by 2 points. So
Oh, my goodness. Well, that's
40,
exciting.
40 countries are represented here at this world dance. So
Well, best of luck in your world dance competition. And great that you can hook up with Reese down in Orlando. Before we get started, I know we have a special guest, but before we do, if you guys who are watching this podcast right now, if you can hit the like button and smash on that subscribe button, it helps us here at Becoming the King of Pot. And if you're looking for some Becoming the King of Pot merchandise, why don't you check out www.becomingtkop.com. We have t-shirts and hats and mouse pads and stash bags and all kinds of cool stuff. And you can help support us here at Becoming the King of Pot. So, Bruce, we have a special guest with us here today, an old friend of yours. Not that he's an old man, just that you've known him for a really long time. Right? So why don't you tell us who is joining us today?
okay, well, joining us today is my attorney from way back in the old days, Alan Silber out of New York. Now, Alan is more than just an attorney to me. We're like really good friends. As an example, whenever I went to New York, I would stay at his place. I would sleep there when we were talking about the case. And he was the attorney in the Miami case. And then he got me local attorneys as I got in trouble all over the country. And he,
Good to have
and
a big network of lawyers just in case, right?
yeah, we did. And Alan, what I wanted Alan Silber to talk about in the beginning, before the Miami trial, was the prosecution of cannabis, and way back, because Alan's like 87 now, I'm 75. So he was one of the very first of a group of attorneys, amazing attorneys, and that all joined an organization called NORML, the National Organization for Reform of Marijuana Laws. They all had the same thing. They would not represent somebody that was going to snitch on anyone. So if you had them as your attorney and you were going to snitch, they would quit. And sometimes they would help you get another attorney that didn't have that ethical, moral compass. Um, and um, and so I like him to talk about the beginning days and all those attorneys and the whole this evolution of cannabis prosecution.
Yeah, of course. Alan, welcome. Welcome to the podcast. We're happy to have you here. We want to tell some old marijuana stories and, culminating with Bruce's famous trial down in Miami. So, you were a lawyer for Normal. That's interesting. Did you work with Bruce Smuggling back in the day?
Sure,
Yeah, nice.
sure.
So
Yeah,
how'd you get involved in the beginning days of marijuana as an attorney?
it was okay. This is exactly how it happened. I was an assistant prosecutor. I tried a case against one of the great lawyers who became my friend, forever. We went 17 weeks in this really um, nail to nail trial. Um, and in the end, I actually went to work for him when I left the
Mhm.
prosecutor's office.
What
And
was
he
the
had
case? What kind of case was it?
It was an insurance fraud case, and he
Okay.
represented a lawyer. There were 2 doctors and 2 lawyers, and I was the young prosecutor, and it was the case that I learned the most. He was the best lawyer ever. He became my close friend. I worked for him, uh, but when I went to work for him, he had this big pot case of 250 pounds in a truck that had been in the boondocks of New Jersey in the mayor's vehicle with a famous basketball player who was in the mayor's office and our client.
Oh, wow.
And so I kind of took over that case. and I made myself a pot lawyer in that case. I went to New England and I met with Richard Schultes of Harvard, who had created the species defense, which was only cannabis sativa is made illegal, and he had said there were two other, uh, you know, persona parts of pot, ruderalis in Russia and indica, which we know. And his position, and Mike Metzger was the lawyer who pioneered this defense, was once it's ground up, you can't tell whether it's sativa or ruderalis or, uh, I lost the word. But
Indica.
anyway, no, the sativa, which is the sative's the only thing that's criminalized in the statute. So there was that defense. As far as I know, that defense never won, but boy, did it produce some great plea agreements. They kept people out of jail.
Right,
So
right.
I went with Schultes. Then I went over to see John Newmeyer at Northeastern College, who was a chemist. And basically, I sat with people who really understood the science of cannabis in a way better than any prosecutor was going to. So
And
now
what
I'm.
year is this? What year is this that you're exploring the science of cannabis?
When was our case, Bruce? 1980?
Our case was 1980.
Yeah.
Um,
So I think this is like, I leave the prosecutor's office in I'm really not sure, but when I went to work for Ray Brown, who was the lawyer, that's when he had the money to send me to all these places to make myself really top of the line dope lawyer. And the nice
Right,
thing
and
about
this is
it,
mid-70s sometime.
yeah, and the nice
Yeah.
thing about it was, you weren't defending criminals. You were defending our friends. You were defending people doing what I was doing. It was like we all knew it wasn't really a crime. So
Ah,
that
even
that
though it was a crime, you
it was
considered
it
it
was
not a
it
crime.
was exactly. There
Yeah.
was, and we were defending our friends and ourselves. So we weren't dealing with criminals who were like hurting people. So that we had a
It's interesting
remarkable.
how you separate, right, the pot culture guys who break the law, right, with a guy who robs a bank or a guy who, is another kind of
All of us
criminal.
all of us did that.
Yeah.
It was impossible not to do in if you did reality. So what happened is we were wildly successful. We killed the prosecutors. I mean, it was, we knew so much more than they did. In that case that I'm talking about, that I where I taught myself to be a drug lawyer, I think it was 250 pounds in the trunk. I drove a plea to the 12 ounces in the front of the car, and New Jersey already had a case that said you couldn't go to jail for first time offense of small amounts of cannabis. So I was able to keep my 250-pound defendant out of jail, except he got arrested before the sentencing. You know who I'm
Ah,
talking about, Bruce, right?
right.
is that Al?
Yeah, yeah. So then I went back to the judge, who really liked me for some reason, and I said, "Look, he's unfortunately, he just got busted with 25,000 pounds of pot, so probably you can't keep our deal." I said, "But here's what I think you can do. You can like rail and say we're not doing the deal and I'm sentencing him to jail, blah, 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 and just make it concurrent with whatever the sentence is in his case in Georgia." And
Uh,
essentially, that's what we did. He didn't do an extra day in jail because the sentence in New Jersey was concurrent. So, in that success, I mean, I never had anybody go to jail for pot until I had a client busted with I think 1,300 plants in Monmouth County, and the judge gave him 90 days. My first client to go to jail, and I appealed the sentence as draconian. And the judge like
yeah, it
laughed.
seems pretty easy, growing weed and only get a few months, I mean,
Yeah,
it
I
seems
mean,
pretty
and
reasonable.
the judge laughed at me when I appealed it as too draconian a sentence. But anyway, the point is that
Right.
we really ran the show for the longest time with the prosecutors until the Drug Abuse Act of 1983. That changed everything, and also changed getting paid in cash.
Right, and what was that act of '83?
Well, among other thing, it brought in the 8,300 forms, where you had to, if you got cash, you had to report that having received the cash.
Mhm.
So that made everything. kind of different. And truthfully, in the end, that's why I became a white collar defense lawyer rather than a drug lawyer. Because they always have money that's mixed in with their criminal money so they can pay you. Where,
Right, sure.
the days
Right.
of the 18-year-old kid coming into your office and laying down an inch of cash on your thing were kind of over at
Yeah.
that point. But
Well, what was that like when you were a drug lawyer and, that's how you would get paid in racks of cash?
well, I mean, Bruce paid us in cash, and truthfully, we did exactly what we didn't have a form to do, but we put it in in the safe deposit and deposited it in the bank and declared it as income.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
Fortunately, somehow one of my partners was putting it in one day at a time for $9,900. So I believe that Bruce testified in the grand jury that he had delivered $9,900 every day to us.
Oh, that's funny. Just to
Saved
keep
our
it under the $10,000,
Oh, yeah, I
bank
mean, I
limit?
had noth that was a partner who was doing that for stupid reasons. I mean,
Yeah,
unbelievably stupid reasons, but nobody knew I mean, everybody made mistakes is what I guess I'm saying.
right.
Anyway, so let me tell you about Bruce, and you'll get an idea of who he is from the first time we met.
Please.
We won't say where it was, and we won't say what it was about,
Well, we
but what
can.
Bru
I mean, what's the statute
well,
of limitations on all this stuff?
I I'm gonna be my own editor, okay?
Alright.
So
But
in
keep
any
in mind, our listeners, and our viewers, they wanna know, and
well, so
we wanna know.
I'm meeting Bruce for the first time through Becky Lind, Becky was my friend. I had defended Dwight, so Becky wanted me to meet Bruce and defend him. We did a pretty wonderful job for Dwight. We kept him out of jail for all
And
that
who's
stuff.
Dwight? Who's Dwight?
Bruce?
I can answer that. Dwight was actually, believe it or not, one of my heroes because he was an older guy that had back then, I was so early in my career, it was before I got those 2 bales from Tommy Powell's load. He was
Yeah.
delivering, Mexican bricks to me. And, it was Becky's boyfriend at the time, and so here's this older guy with all this pot from, Tucson and Arizona, bringing it into Florida and fronting me, hundreds of pounds of, Mexican bricks, and, as a young kid up and coming in the industry, I just really looked up to people like Dwight and the
Well,
Smith brothers and people like that.
when I defended Dwight, I love it. It was in Mount Holly, and the court was on High Street. You couldn't ask for better than that. And I'm there, and I have met my
Right.
clients, and Becky comes walking down the street in a white see-through dress. I fell in love immediately, and still in love with Becky. Uh, and Dwight and I,
Was it the see-through dress that did it?
it was one of the things that did it, for sure.
Got it, got it.
If you've met Becky, you know
I have.
she has a myriad of skills and talents and draws. But anyway, so we kept, I mean, 3 years with Bruce, and we kept him out of jail. Amazingly, got convicted, went to the appellate division, but he never went to jail. So Becky introduces me to Bruce to represent him. And
So,
this is this
so let's just set the scene. So, Bruce, you're indicted in Miami, right? That's what's happening?
Correct.
Good.
He's a fugitive from the case in Miami.
Right, you're in California, and you have to come to Miami for your trial, but
But
let's,
yeah.
back
First,
up a little bit, and how you
let me
guys met, and how
yeah.
you guys described what was happening.
Let me tell the story because it tells you more about Bruce than anything. It was a day in which a plane flying, I think, from Minneapolis to Detroit or something, had gone into a power dive and had dropped 40,000 feet in a completely uncontrolled power dive. And the pilot actually saved the plane by putting the landing gears down when it got down to about 4,000 feet. And they say he saved the plane. And Bruce said to me, "This is what you need to know about Bruce." He said, "Now that I know that everybody lived, I really wish I'd been on that plane." So for Bruce, the drug was always adrenaline. It wasn't
Yeah.
pot.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanna interject a story about that.
Please.
Dana, who was Alan's roommate for a long time, was out at the Ukiah house, and Dana and I are in a six-wheel drive vehicle.
Dana.
Dana, sorry, okay,
Rhymes
and
with banana.
we're driving this up through the mountains, the same one that you talked about, Todd, right? When
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
turned it over,
I crashed
and
it.
we
Yeah,
get to a really steep part. We're like this, and I look over at Dana. How's Dana?
yeah.
Dana, and I say, "Should we go for it?" And she because it was pretty dangerous. It was like, we're gonna roll over if we go for this, or we may not if we're lucky. And she goes, "Yeah." I go, and I was so thrilled that she said, "Yeah," that adrenaline just went rushing through my body, and I realized that about myself at that moment. I am an adrenaline junkie because we went down, the thing went end over end, but it was light. We jumped out, we tipped it back up, no gas spilled all over us like it did when Todd did it, and we kept going. But that was when I realized absolutely I was an adrenaline junkie because I was a thrill of her saying yeah.
And we should
Yeah.
know that she also became my wife, Dana. We were married for 7 years, and we're still good friends, and I think she'll be here for she was here in February for the track meet for Milrose Games in New York, and I think the national championships are gonna be in New York this year, and I think she's gonna come for that. So we're still friends, although we've been divorced for much longer than we were married.
And I do wanna tell Alan to tell one story that he told me years ago, that I thought is very, very interesting. When you were with Al, and you were walking down the street with Al, and you were defending him, you're a young drug lawyer, and he said, "Do you want to share a joint with me?" And you said at that moment, you saw your life going this direction or this direction. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, no, it's really true. Albert was my first drug client. He was the client in that case that we ended up, with a pot in the trunk of the case. And he did say that, and I had to make a judgment, and I clearly made the right judgment. And I still am in touch with Albert. He's still a good friend, etc. Probably the only danger that I ever had was introducing the two of you. I could see myself right in the middle of a RICO for having done that, but it was totally innocent. Is actually we were staying at the house he was staying at out in Malibu Canyon, if you remember that. And that was actually my first acid trip that I did with Al. Um,
Cool.
Oh, well, let's talk about your first acid trip with Al all of a sudden. We've just
well,
taken a right turn, right?
I
But,
was out there with Adam, who was down learning how to body surf, and so they convinced me that I should drop acid. And I remember going for a run with Albert and the dog. We jumped in the lake and went swimming, and then I went off running by myself in Malibu Canyon, and I can still conjure the eucalyptus smells that I had. It was really, it was really exactly what Norman, what's his name, who
Lear.
writing about hallucinogenics now, the uh, the way to the recipe to change your mind. I can go look at the book if I need to tell you. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I study a lot about the psychedelics myself, and I'm reading a lot of books. I just finished a book, Orange Sunshine, about the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, who put 130 million tabs of Orange Sunshine into the marketplace, which I think they did a great service to humankind. I want to thank you guys for your
I've
work.
I've never had anything but a really remarkable uh, trip with hallucinogenics, and mostly taking my when he wrote the book, he suggested everybody do it. In fact, he did a column in the New York Times suggesting that everybody take
Oh,
their own.
Timothy Leary, you talking about him?
Oh no, I'm not.
No?
Norman, he's a food guy. The one who wrote about. Shall I go grab? Let me get his name. It's in my bookshelf up there.
Yeah, go
Sure.
ahead. All right, so I'll elaborate on the story with him now. So he's walking down the street. He goes, at that moment when he offered him to smoke a joint, he goes, my mind went two ways. One, I'm going to be a straight lawyer, for the rest of my life, defending, being a criminal attorney, or two, I'm not gonna be straight, and I'm gonna smoke marijuana. So his future life flashed in front of him, and he went and shared the joint with with Al, and the rest is history because he's, one of the finest, drug attorneys in America, and in general, not just drug attorneys, but all kinds of his cases.
Sure,
Did you find the
sure.
book?
No,
All right.
any
So you
figures,
meet Bruce through Becky, who is a goddess, right? You meet
right?
Bruce, and what's that first impression like?
Um, I don't think I had one, except that he was an adrenaline junkie from what he said about the plane going. And eventually, when Bruce got popped in Ukiah because you had your kid, right?
Well, yeah, it was the outstanding warrant for my arrest for the smuggling that I did with the
No,
Smith
no, it
brothers.
wasn't. It was about
And
you stole your
and the
kid.
kidnapping, when I kidnapped Aubrey, which we went over that in a previous episode.
Yeah.
Well,
So
yeah, the
they
reason I say
initiated the search for me because I kidnapped my Aubrey, my son. But I had custody at the time I did that, so it really wasn't a kidnapping. Alright, and then they had found me, they found
Allegedly.
my son with me, and they arrested me for that, even though they dropped that, and then the outstanding warrant for the Jamaican smuggle with the Smith brothers is what I went to trial for.
yeah,
Right,
well,
and that's the
it
one
was it.
where you picked up the Winnebago full of weed, right?
Yes,
From
from the Smith
yeah, yeah.
brothers, 8,000
Right,
pounds.
right, right,
Well,
right.
this was a boat that came into Fort Lauderdale, I think, right? And there were 5 or 6 people who were arrested and tried. Bruce was a fugitive. But what happened in it really was we had to deal with the state case first with the kid and the kidnapping. And we lucked into one. It was incredible luck because I had done a case in Florida for Joel magazine, actually for Jack Blumenfeld, and we had a young, eager law student who worked with us, uh, and we won the case in the appellate division in Florida. And by then, she was the state's attorney in Florida who had the case, so she already liked us, and we got a really good disposition. Got rid of that case, and then went to trial on the federal case um, before Judge his name's crusty old Southern judge. He was been a state judge for years. He was a Southern guy, and I have no idea why he just took to this Jewish New York lawyer in his courtroom, and I mean, he was really nice to me the
Yeah.
whole way through, and he sort of he was not a friend of the prosecutor because truthfully, the prosecutor couldn't find Orson Welles in a phone booth. Nice enough, but he was really
Right.
not swift, and so we got to well the first okay first they put a witness on the stand. Their first witness, background witness, who's going to be a cooperating witness against Bruce. Remember, first day of trial, and we end up the first day of trial, and as everybody's leaving the bench, I said, "Wait a minute, Judge, I want to put a question to the witness through you." I said, "Will you meet with me and talk with me tonight before the cross examination?" And the witness looks at the judge and says, "Is that all right?" And the judge says, "You can do whatever you want." And he goes, "Sure, I'll meet with you." And then he was not here. We got to go somewhere. So we went to the Mutiny, which was the place where all those marijuana deals were made in those days. And my cross examination the next day was rather fabulous. Uh, just because he didn't want to be a snitch. He loved Bruce, and he gave me as much ammunition as he could to dull his impact.
Was that Herschel?
I can't remember his name.
I think
First,
that was Herschel, yeah. He could have buried me. He could have
yeah,
buried me because I met him at the location at the motor home full of marijuana. At the Smith Brothers ranch, and he came into the motor home. We had a conversation. He took a
never met
bail
him.
and left, and he said on Alan's cross-examination, he never saw me there. So
That's
he
right.
actually lied and if he didn't lie, I probably would have gotten convicted, but
Well,
that
I didn't know he was lying. I took him for telling me the absolute truth, but I did. Yeah,
Well, you
really.
were
That's your
always that
story
way.
and you're sticking
You
to
were
it,
always
right?
playing it straight, and I
Yes,
was you
that
know,
I think if you fight with the government, then you can't cross any lines. You got to be above reproach, or they'll screw you. So that is absolutely true. So we put on a 30-day alibi defense in this case that Bruce was in at the Magic
Gainesville.
Woodsman, Gainesville, at the Magic Woodsman, and
Right,
we
that's when your
hung.
friend Betty had to come in and vouch for that, right, Bruce?
Yeah, everyone did. Interesting enough, the Magic Woodsman's grand opening, and we had the signs and the flyers for the grand opening, was the exact day that the boatload came in, and I was supposed to be in Fort Lauderdale picking up a load of pot. Well, how can I be in Fort Lauderdale picking up a load of pot when I got all these witnesses and flyers saying I was at the Magic Woodsman's grand opening? So yeah, we brought in all these alibi witnesses that said we saw him in Gainesville and we never saw him in Miami. So,
And I guess with Herschel just confirming all of that, then slam dunk defense, it sounds like.
Well, it wasn't a slam dunk exactly, and we had a little excitement at the end that never got to the jury. Uh, but
So
it
what
was
happened?
we had the government produced a witness who could have blown our alibi apart. And what happened was they didn't subpoena her. So she went to another lawyer, and the other lawyer said, "You don't have to go. They didn't subpoena you." So she went back to work and got subpoenaed. And now she and her lawyer are driving to the courthouse to see if she's going to testify before summations. And the U.S. attorney decided it was a bad idea to keep the jury waiting and we should start summations. So we summed up, and if I say so myself, it was one of my best summations. I think I had your dad in tears. And then
What was your angle? What was your angle, Alan?
it was that he
On
wasn't
your
there.
summation?
Alibi
Yeah.
defense, and they couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was part of the smuggle. And so the judge charges the jury goes out, and then the lawyer and this witness come in to the courtroom. And the young lawyer, and he's pretty young, goes to the judge and says, "Judge, there's nothing going on here, and I want permission to take my witness and leave the courthouse." And the judge leans down, as I'm telling you, it's older than God, crusty Southern judge, goes, "Young man, I don't sit up here to give advisory opinions. You're going to have to make your own judgment about this." And he leaves the bench. And so I went out around to catch him before he went into his chambers. And I went up to the judge and I said, "Judge, let me tell you what I heard you say to this young lawyer. Sonny, if you got the gumption that God gave you, you'll tell the U.S. attorney to stuff it up his ass and take your client out." And the judge just started laughing and went, "Well, your interpretation is your interpretation." And laughing off into his chambers. It's exactly what he told him. And so the witness never testified and the jury hung. And then, so the jury hung. I'm going to
So
tell
what
you,
happens then on a hung
I'm going to
jury?
tell you,
Is it new? Oh, okay.
I'm going to tell you because it's the most unethical thing I ever did. And I don't think Bruce knows about it. But so we go to the courthouse and they've given us a non-custodial plea, a plea to a non-custodial judge, not going to jail, which we will take. Rather than a retrial. And so the judge says, "Look, this is a 7,000-pound smuggle, and truthfully, I'm unlikely to accept this plea. So, you can put it in, and I'll look at the pre-sentence report and all that. But I'm telling you now, at 7,000 pounds, it's not likely that I'm going to agree to a plea for no jail time." So I'm there with all our people, jury selection people, everybody except Bruce. Now, one of the things in the real story is ethically, only Bruce can make this decision. The lawyer can't make this decision for him. It's only Bruce. But he's not there. I actually never thought to have him there. I never thought to include him in this decision. This was my decision. Completely unethical. But I remember going back, I got everybody. Tink was there by that time with us, and the great investigator from San Francisco. And I got everybody's opinion. And then I went and sat in the corner by myself. And I came back and I said, "We're going to trial." And I went back in and told the judge, "We're going to trial." And the prosecutor went nuts. He was like, "Alligators in the courtroom," and blah, 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 blah. And he came in the next day with a written memo as to why the judge should take the plea. And that's when the judge agreed to take the plea. I believe that was enhanced by us agreeing to an extra $500 fine over the fine that
Wow.
was done. Right.
Wow.
The party that night was amazing.
Yeah, I bet. So let's talk about the
No, no,
final
no.
outcome, the high-fiving, and, You know, the
Well, the
relief
things
from
they
you,
accused
Bruce. I mean, you certainly felt some relief when that was over, right?
Well, yeah, I wanna jump back to one part during the trial.
the
Alan is
obstructions.
in the hotel room. I told this earlier, but Alan, I'm gonna tell it for Alan to hear. Alan's interviewing the witnesses, witness prep, what are you gonna say? Because we had a bunch of witnesses saying I was in Gainesville, so he had to ask them questions, see how they're gonna answer, make sure that nobody says, "Oh, yeah, he was in Miami too." Um, and so I go in there, he goes, "Bruce, I gotta do witness protect." He goes, "Bruce, get that smile off your face. This is a serious situation. You're facing 5 years." And I go, "Yeah, but Becky read my, the tarot cards, and there's no confinement in my chart." And he goes, "Confinement, schminement, there's nobody, I don't believe in that. I believe I'm a lawyer. This is a case of law. This is very serious. Wipe that smile off your face." So I actually had to go back into the other room and say, "Okay, Becky, how does this look? Do I look serious?" She goes, "No, no, you still got that shitty grin on your face." I go, "Okay, what about now?" He goes, "No, no." I go, "And now?" "Okay, yeah, good, good. Hold that on your face." So I walk back into the room with that look on my face. I go, "Alan, I agree. This is really, really serious." In the back of my mind, I says, I'm not going to jail. There's no confinement in my chart." And he goes, "Good. I'm glad you're finally taking this seriously."
Confinement, schminement sounds like something I would say.
And then
So
one
what
other
was it
little
like, Alan, having these hippy dippies, right, as your clients?
Bruce and I became really good friends, not lawyer-client relationship. We became really good friends even when it was after he stayed at my house. But one of the things that was really interested in is they accused us of obstructing justice, which we never did. But they accused us of that. So we had T-shirts made up that said obstructors. And
Right.
and in the party that we had a victory party a year afterwards out in Ukiah, everybody had their obstructor shirts on for
Oh,
that
that's funny.
party.
So, I'm gonna
Well,
elaborate on the obstructors, the
Please.
obstructors. Alan is out interviewing government witnesses. I think Dickie Schwartz was the one that you were out interviewing at the time, and
and
we had
also
a
your wife,
what's that?
and your ex-wife, who was the
Oh,
witness who did
Diane.
the worst to us, and I was, like, hanging out with her lawyer, you know, that was probably a little unethical. But but she was cute, so why not?
Right,
And
Oh,
exactly.
yeah, I mean, if as long as they're cute,
and you
what
remember Barry
ethics, schmethics,
Cocoziello
right?
was going to meet another witness
Right,
who's
yep.
who's also cute, and we explained to Bruce that we were the full service law firm.
Yeah, I had just brought in 2 boatloads out in California prior to this trial. So I was rolling in dough, so I had a first-class defense. We had 2 investigators, Tink Thompson, a very famous, wrote a book, 6 Seconds in Dallas, and 1 Second in Dallas, a recent book about the Kennedy assassination. Kat Bennett and Marta, 2 jury and trial consultants, lawyers up the yin
Still
yang.
good friends with Marta, by the way.
Oh,
She's
she was
married. She is just a wonderful human being. We had the cream of the crop. That's true.
We really did have time. So he's out interviewing the lawyers, and Barry's out interviewing the lawyer, and the prosecutor calls, and Kat Bennett, the brilliant jury and trial consultant, answers the phone, and he goes, "I need to talk to Alan." And he goes, "Well, he's not here." He goes, "Well, where is he?" He goes, "I'm not going to tell you." She goes, "What? Is he out interviewing me? Is he out tampering with my witnesses? I'm going to arrest you, and I'm going to arrest him. I'm going to arrest everyone for obstruction of justice." So she got all nervous. She's petrified because prosecutor just threatened her. Alan comes back and she tells the story. Alan just laughs. He goes, "You can't, that's not obstruction of justice. I have every legal right to interview the lawyers. I mean, the prosecuting
Witnesses, yeah.
witnesses." And so we joked and called ourselves the obstructors from then on and had the T-shirt made the obstructors. And a year later, after we celebrated in Florida, um, and I don't think I went to celebrate. I heard about it when everyone was doing cocaine. I don't know if Alan was there or not, but that was the house. I was off doing some smuggling or something.
Well, what
And
you did say was when we looked at the house we rented and it had like a place where the boats went up, he said, "One night I could pay for this whole defense." You said that. We didn't do anything, but it was definitely on your mind. It was
in fact, yes, the other day I was driving across a bridge here in Orlando. I looked down. I go, "That's a great offload spot." I
yeah.
was showing Nicole. Anyway, so a year later, we had 7 motorhomes parked at the Ukiah house, and we flew out everybody from that trial that was available, and the witnesses, the attorneys, the jury and trial consultants, and we all had a big, giant celebration.
And
Uh,
Becky was wonderful because you had your girlfriend meet me at the airport, and we had a great thing. In fact, I think we had puppies under the bed at night, and I brought her to the party, which was not Becky's first choice,
yeah,
but she forgave. But she forgave me.
I'm trying to think who's the adrenaline junkie here, me or you? You bringing Roseanne to the party.
Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
I'm
And
glad she came.
there was another blonde that Barry was with, and we brought her to the party too. It
We're
was
all a bit wild, Todd. You
and
know,
and
No, that's great. Yeah.
Dana and
And
I Ellen were there as a couple, if you remember.
yep, and,
how many people showed up to the big shindig?
I thought it was 100 maybe.
it was close to 100.
I
It was
remember we had this great, completely stoned out run, which I think Ellen and I don't know, David Berman was there, I think, and we ran 6 miles down the hill, and then we had to go 6 miles up the hill, and Ellen took a ride with Harvey Sandy up uphill. The rest of us ran back up the hill, jumped. We had a wonderful. It was a great. It was possibly one of the greatest parties of all time.
and, but I wanna back up to the run. Alan is a marathon runner. Dana is a marathon runner, and when I would go and visit Alan in New York, he would make me run. He'd go, "Come on, we're gonna go on a run," because he did that every day or every other day. So he'd say, "Come," and I'm out of breath. He's in great shape. I can barely make it. And he's going, "Come on, come on. We only have 3 more kilometers to go." And I'm thinking in my head, "A kilometer? What's a kilometer?" I'm thinking, "Is it more than a mile? Is it less than a mile? How fast are we going? How many more miles can I get out in a mile?" And I'm calculating all this. I'm thinking, "Oh, shit." And I'm just hoping a kilometer wasn't that much further. But that happened like 2 or 3 times, this kilometer thing.
Well, I was a serious hard trainer, so that when I was really in great shape, right when I turned 40, I was running 13 times a week. I ran
Wow.
twice a day, every day except Sunday when I ran 20 miles. And my rest days were 2 slow 4 mile. I ran twice on my rest days, but I'd run at 10 minutes a mile, just real easy. So I was in pretty fucking good shape.
How are
So
those
I
knees
took
and hips
Alan up.
nowadays?
Say again.
I said, how are your knees and hips nowadays?
Everything is okay except my feet. So I'm really not running, but I'm doing a lot of Pilates and
Yeah.
riding my exercise bike and stuff. I I like where you can see I thinking no. Can you see the exercise bike behind me? I don't think so. Anyway,
Alan,
so
I'd like to jump back to the very beginning. We mentioned it when we were warming up for this podcast about the prosecution of cannabis. Because how do you see it, and your group of lawyers from Normal see that reality? You know,
well
what's going
then and
on
that,
there?
well, if you think about it, the fact that it's illegal federally and legal, state-wise mostly is makes it's like a Saturday Night's Live skit. So the Fed, I don't know quite how you do it because uh, the states, or here's the fact that I think is really telling. When the pandemic hit and all businesses were closed except those were essential, medical cannabis in 33 states remained open because it was essential to health. And yet the feds say it's Schedule 1, at least up until 2 days ago, Schedule 1 with no accepted medical use, and you get 33 states, who say that the medical use is essential. So, I mean, that's nuts, right? I
Well,
mean,
it's
but
typical political hypocrisy.
well,
You know.
it's the federal government and the states. It's like Saturday Night Live. It could be a skit for Saturday Night Live. Um, but until the feds make it legal, not Schedule 3 or whatever they rescheduled it to, but deschedule it,
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
descheduling is what needs to happen and not
I wrote a
rescheduling, which
brief
just happened, right?
Yeah, well, New Jersey had the the judge who wanted to make marijuana did, you know, basically New Jersey has legal, medical, and recreational marijuana.
Yep.
Uh, Asked his Consumer Affairs Division to do a study on schedule. And I remember we wrote a brief, my firm and I wrote a brief as to why it should be descheduled, and because it wasn't as dangerous as aspirin or any over the counter drugs that get sold. There's never been a death from overdose of marijuana because the receptors in the endocannabinoid system aren't back here. And so where the white powder drugs are, and you get overdose deaths, the endocannabinoid system, which is the most important discovery about marijuana that nobody knows about. It's in I guess it's Israeli got the first one in 1983 and the second one in
Yep.
2003, and it explains why you have all these oral discussions that seemingly are disparate. It's because of the understanding of that the endocannabinoid system, which is in turns out all mammals, um, you know, we produce an endocannabinoid that's very similar to the THC molecule, the ectocannabinoid. So if your endocannabinoids are a little weak, the ectocannabinoids help in all aspects. So that's, you know, one of the reasons why the federal government is beyond stupid in the way they are treating cannabis, but they're beyond stupid in so many things. That's not even
Be
among the top
beyond
20.
stupid, that's right. That's right. Yeah, pot had a really bad marketing campaign since the '30s, right, with the, federal government, and it's
Well,
been
you know
tough,
why
right? It's changing the
you know
minds.
you know what they say why it's in Schedule 1? It produces, I swear this is on this website, it produces euphoria. The government's banning euphoria?
But
Really?
that's so
I
typical,
I like
right?
listen,
Right?
I like euphoria. I'm a euphoria
Yeah.
fan.
Right.
But I
Right.
mean, is anything more
Right.
stupid than that?
Right. We want misery, only death and destruction. That's what
We
we
well,
support, right?
you remember Mencken's definition of Puritanism?
No, do tell.
The haunting fear that somewhere, someone may be happy.
God
Mencken
forbid, right?
Mencken's always
Right.
been my hero.
That's funny. So you guys have become friends over the years. Do you think you would have been equal friends if Bruce was found guilty?
I never considered that possibility.
It wasn't in my chart.
No, no, I mean,
Right, it wasn't in your chart.
what you're saying is it possible that if I had to win in the appellate in the 5th Circuit or the 11th Circuit, that it would have dented our friends because, you know, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question
Yeah, no.
because he
So
wasn't.
then that's the case in Miami. So then Bruce, goes off and does an incredible, couple of more years of smuggling, and then he gets busted in Chicago in 1983, and, are you still his lawyer at this point?
I go to Chicago, right? We're trying to get you out of jail on bail in Chicago, and the government comes up to me and shows me a 302. Which is one of their undercover people being interviewed with Bruce, and Bruce telling him that I was the lawyer for the criminal conspiracy, and I was present at every landing zone in case anything went wrong. None of which was true. It was,
Right.
I have no idea whether you said it or not, Bruce, but it was in the 302.
Well, I talked a lot. They infiltrated my group, and I talked a lot, at my Ukiah house to the, agents and then in Sarasota, and I would never have said that you were at the offloading point
No
because you
way.
weren't, ever.
No,
Nobody the
I
last
was
thing
never.
you want is your lawyer
I
to
was
know or anyone else to know when and where your offloading is. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I was never part of that operation, but the fact that there was a 302 to an agent meant that if I'm the lawyer, I'm as interested in defending myself as I am in defending Bruce, and that's why you can't do it. So
I
I
see.
was clearly out of the case. Now I think I got you to what's his name in Florida, who did a
Well, you got me with the guy in Chicago, I forget who it was, and you got me,
yeah, it was Pritzker in Chicago,
Michael Pritzker.
right?
Yeah, that was Tommy Powell's attorney. He was a great attorney too.
He was
Any
wonderful.
relation to J.D. Pritzker?
I think yes. So it's part of the
Yeah?
same family.
Oh, nice.
And then in
Uh,
Florida, who did I have in Florida? I don't really remember.
I don't remember the name either, but he was quite good. And eventually, you pled guilty for 10 years. And I think, did you cooperate against
No.
some of the state? No.
Nope.
And but you got the sentence to the only co-ed prison in the system, and you made it work for you,
Yeah, that
which,
was
which, which surprised nobody.
I was very lucky to be able to go to Pleasanton and have 2/3 women in jail with me. I mean, how many people get busted for to go to jail for 9 years and have a friggin' ball? Yeah.
Right. Well, you got
Yeah, not too many
degrees?
people.
How many degrees did you get when you were at Pleasanton?
5 college degrees, read 100 books a year, got in great physical condition. I I guess the longest run I did was, in Pleasanton, and it was 14 miles, and then we had to go in. And I remember when I stopped running to go into, they said count time, and I go get counted, I was so friggin' high. First time I experienced the runner's high, I mean, I was like on cloud 9, not when I was running, when I stopped.
You see, I
And
don't think there's any such thing as runner's high. What there is non-runner's low.
That's funny.
yeah.
That's funny. All right. So, any other final notes, stories, questions,
We,
comments? You
I
know,
think we've wrapped it up. It's 1:29, so I think we're in a good place.
well, this has been lots and lots of fun for me, hearing from the lawyer's mouth who actually had to go in and defend the king from going to jail. So, Alan, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's been quite a feat to get you on the podcast, so we appreciate your time and we appreciate your stories. And I personally appreciate your work that you've done for the cannabis plant for all of these years. So, thank you for that for sure. Once again, his name is Bruce Perlowin. He's the king of pot. That other handsome devil over there, that's Alan Silber, Bruce's attorney when he was busted as the king of pot. I'm Todd Dangan, and this has been Becoming the King of Pot. We'll see you guys next time.